السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم. The sound clear? Can anyone hear me? Is the sound better like this, or should I return it to before? Not sure if there's something wrong with my microphone or it's the laptop itself.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Now it is fine, Sheikh. Now it is
Now
audible.
it's better. Okay.
Yes, Sheikh.
طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Today we're going to cover the section of al-awani wal-libas. Al-awani is the plural for ania. And ania is basically anything that holds food or liquid, such as plates, cutlery, glasses, cups. But when we're talking about it from the Shara'i perspective, it extends to anything in use. It extends to just using things in general, tables, pens, um, uh, it can be anything, beds, hair combs, and we're going to get to each one. Basically, the reason we're talking about this is because, back in the day before they had um, a sink in every single home, in every single bathroom, usually the way you would make wudu or ghusl or any type of tahara was that the water would be in a vessel. It could be and for most people, it was in a vessel made of clay, or pottery to be, clay or non-clay, terracotta, all these earth materials, and they would pour it onto their hands, onto their feet, sometimes into another plate to help them. But the point is that some people from amongst the rich would use gold and silver in these awani, in the ania. And so the fuqaha, when they're talking about wudu, when they're talking about tahara, they include the rulings of gold and silver uh, in general because it fits most in this subsection. So even though we're going to talk about things not pertaining to Tahara, this is why it's in this chapter. طيب, he says رحمه الله ما يجوز في الأواني واللباس. What is permissible in awani and al-libas. And al-libas is clothing. Because the hurma, the impermissibility of using certain materials, like I said, even though it's originally talking about plates, cups, cutlery, it extends to everything, including clothing, and a bunch of other things we listed a few moments ago. He says, رحمه الله, يحرم على المكلف استعمال أواني الذهب والفضة. It is impermissible for the mukallaf to use awani made of gold and silver. So when it comes to both males and females, it is impermissible to use them. So as we know, the ruling for wearing gold is different for men and women. Some people might confuse that with awani. So it's permissible for women to wear, but when it comes to using it, using it to hold water, using it to hold food, and these things, it is impermissible for both women and men. وعلى الذكر خاصة ما حلي بأحدهما. So for men specifically, we have an additional um, prohibition. As we said, women are allowed to wear it, but men, it is impermissible for them to, wear something that was adorned with gold or silver. So, wearing a golden crown for a king, wearing a shirt that has strings of gold. So some people nowadays, not even nowadays, even back then, they would make strings of gold and they would mix it in with the strings of um, linen or wool or cotton, and the gold or the silver would be part of the shirt or part of the pants or shoes or whatever. Similarly, sometimes the buttons of a shirt would be made of gold or silver. Um, People wear gold on their watches, which is a new thing, not covered in the books of back then. Um, Belt buckles, so many different things can have gold on them, and just look at the, non-Muslim influencers or, extravagant people that appear on social media. You can see all the creative different ways that you can add gold or silver into your clothing. So he says, لبسا أو استعمالا. So he says, when it comes to men, it is both wearing and using. Uh, and this is different from women, as we will get to in a bit. He says, ولو آلة حرب. So when it comes to clothing, we covered it. When it comes to usage, he says, even if it is a piece of war equipment. So there are a few exceptions. He says, إلا المصحف. When it comes to a mushaf may be adorned with gold. A mushaf, the Holy Scripture is obviously sacred and it is glorified in a shari manner. However, the illah here, the reason for it being permissible to use gold does not extend to other religiously glorified things, things that are glorified in the Sharia. So, a hadith book, a fiqh book, your pocket-sized Dala'il al-Khayrat, all these things are impermissible to adorn with gold. When it comes to books, I mentioned a few examples of how people can mix gold in with clothing. When it comes to books, there is other things. There's adorning things with golden leaf. If you don't know what that is, it's a very, very thin, extremely thin layer of gold, and they would basically put glue on the paper. So they would write letters. They write Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then they would go over those letters with glue, and they would put that golden leaf on top of those letters. And then they would rub it a bit, and so it's basically written in gold. Similarly, they would use it for images. Sometimes they would use it on the borders of the pages. So this is all different than adorning the cover of the book, the outside cover of the book. All of this is only permissible for the mushaf. Adorning anything with gold, a hadith book, a fiqh book, is impermissible. Similarly, some fuqaha from the Shafi'iyya, they tried to make a qiyas. They said that because it's permissible to adorn the mushaf with gold, then it's permissible to adorn the Kaaba with gold. And this is a faulty qiyas. Even their own fuqaha pointed this out. Another evidence they use is that um, in the Khilafah of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, the I'm not sure which number Umayya Khalifa, um, he was the first to adorn the Kaaba with gold. And it is argued from some of the fuqaha that this is permissible because none of the Sahaba, there were Sahaba at the time alive, none of them, um, none of them objected to this. And so it was according to them, sukuti ijma', ijma' by silence, meaning if nobody objects to the action of someone, then it is an ijma' by silence. Because if they disagreed, then they would have spoken up. But this is again a faulty piece of evidence because Abdul Malik was a Khalifa of tyranny, such as all of the non Khulafa al-Rashidin, all of them would have imprisoned or killed someone for objecting. And so there's no evidence that the Kaaba should be adorned with gold, as has been done for the last many, many centuries. And obviously, if the Kaaba cannot be, then it extends to all of the masajid, some masajid all over the world. Um, they have gold on the minbar, they have gold in the mihrab, some of them on top of the domes and the ma'adhan, they have gold. There's all different ways that they are adorned with gold. So again, back to the men. What is permissible and impermissible for the men? We said that a mushaf is permissible. A sword is also permissible. But there is um, restrictions. The reason that you're allowed to adorn a sword with gold is to add haiba. In Arabic, we say haiba, which is, this grandeur or prestige around an object or a person. Um, if you look at if you face someone on the battlefield, you're a non-Muslim and you face a Muslim on the battlefield and his sword is adorned with gold. Uh, it adds some, aura to this warrior you're about to face, and it adds fear into the hearts of um, the enemy. And so obviously the restriction would be is that if you're going to adorn the sword with gold, the sword has to actually be used. You can't adorn a sword with gold only to hang it on the wall or only to use in ceremonies. It has to actually be used. And so the adornment of gold has to be functional. Gold is obviously a very soft metal. It's not like carbon steel, which you can use for a sword or a spear or something. And so you can't have the entire sword made of gold. That's not functional. It's not of use in a war. So it has to be a functional sword. This adornment has to be, it shouldn't impede the usefulness of the sword or the weapon, and it has to actually be used. Another condition that the fuqaha added is that it can't be a woman who's using it. Because again, the reason is that we're adding grandeur to the warrior. Um, and let's be realistic, if you're facing a woman on the battlefield, you're not gonna be fearful of her regardless of whatever she is, whatever sword she is wielding. And so these are the restrictions for the sword. والسن والأنف. Uh, teeth. Teeth fall out sometimes. Teeth can be, uh, filled with gold or silver. Or to be more specific, you are allowed to replace your tooth with a tooth of gold or a tooth of silver. And similarly, a nose. This is much less common than the tooth, but if a nose is disfigured or cut off in some sort of accident or non-accident, you can replace it with a golden nose or a silver nose. And the evidence for both of these is that the Sahaba did them, and the Prophet did not object to them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the last one is والخاتم من الفضة إن اتحد ولم يزد على درهمين. So we know that as men we can wear a silver ring. This is again one of the exceptions. There are conditions for this ring. They are a little more strict than some of the other madhab. So first of all, it has to be one ring. It has to be one ring, and it has to be uh, less than two mithqals. A mithqal is a unit of measurement, and here he says ولا يزيد على درهمين. So a mithqal, the word mithqal in Arabic literally means weight. So it's the standardized unit of measurement, and it's equal to a dirham. So a The weight of one dirham is called a mithqal. Similarly, for gold, the weight of one dinar is one mithqal of gold. I think we said this last time. I'm not sure, I don't remember under what context, but the mithqal of silver is around 3.11 grams of silver. So two mithqals would be 6.2 grams. So you shouldn't be wearing a silver ring that is 10 grams or 12 grams of silver, um, because that is considered extravagant. Um, and similarly, again, we mentioned that it has to be one ring. So even if both rings combined are less than the maximum weight, I have one ring that is 1 gram and then another ring that is 1 gram. This is impermissible. It has to be one ring, and it is permissible for for the ring to, have a stone in it. Um, it is narrated from the Sunnah that the stones are made of aqiq, which is a amber-like substance that it's usually found in trees. Um, it's a liquid within trees that solidifies. This is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ would have a stone like this within his ring, and that it was from Al-Habasha. It was an Abyssinian stone. But there are a bit of conflicting narrations regarding the rings. But it's permissible to use stones in the rings regardless. Now, regarding the rings of the Prophet ﷺ, it is narrated that he used to wear gold. He used to wear a golden ring, and then it is narrated he took it off in front of the Sahaba, and he said, "I will never wear it again." So the impermissibility of gold, the impermissibility of gold in rings is a new ruling. It is mansukh. Is there no sayings by Al-Imam al-Dardir regarding wearing gold? I'm not sure. What do you mean? Can you be more specific with the question? And I'll read it at the end. We still have a bit of rulings to cover anyway. So it is permissible. So it is impermissible. It used to be permissible. So the permissibility of it was abrogated. It is mansukh. It is replaced by the new ruling. And so those who say that it is impermissible to wear gold because it is a feature of women, that's not the correct understanding, because that would mean that the Prophet ﷺ was imitating women in a previous time, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, which is obviously not true. The reason is simply extravagance. Extravagance meaning spending what is not worth spending on from the money of the dunya. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, he said, "Do not wear gold and silk because they are for them in the dunya and they are for us in the akhirah." Meaning that the people of kufr, the people of rejecting Islam, they buy for their dunya, they spend on their dunya, whereas us, we do not spend on stupid things, and that's why we will have it in the akhirah. If gold was impermissible because it is imitating women, then there's no reason to give it to us in the akhirah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not allow men to imitate women in al-akhirah. Rather, it is to give them, the blessings that they do not have in the dunya. So, those are the rulings for a silver ring for men. Now, there are three, to be specific, there are three masail, three matters regarding gold and silver in general, before we move on to what women can wear and what they cannot. As we said, gold and silver are impermissible in general. The first mas'ala is, are gold-plated items permissible? Meaning, I have a plate. This plate is pure gold. We can't eat from it. It's haram. This is clear. What if I have a ceramic plate? Perfectly fine. and I plate it with a very thin layer of gold. Is this called a golden plate? We call this الذهب المموه. مموه. It is, spread across the outer um, surface of the plate or whatever. We're just using the plate as an example. This applies to everything. Is this permissible to eat from? So we have الذهب المموه. That is the first one. We have a second مسألة, which is the exact opposite. If I have a golden plate and it is covered with a thin layer of something else, let's say, um, uh, let's say brass or copper, a permissible metal. So when I hold the plate, the inside of it is golden and the outside of it is brass or copper. This is called الذهب المغشى, الذهب, gold that is covered. And then the third mas'ala is الذهب المضبب. What is this? Some of you may have seen a plate that has a crack in it, or it has a hole in it, and that crack is filled with gold. So the plate itself may be white or blue or whatever color, it's ceramic, but there's a crack that goes through it to the middle, and that crack is filled with gold, and it adorns the plate or the cup or whatever it is. Um, I think this is common in um, the far Asian countries in China and Japan. I think they do this more often than most than other cultures, but it exists everywhere. And this is the third mas'ala, الذهب المضبب. So in all these three masail, the items that we're using are not pure gold. So there's a question, are they permissible or are they not? And the madhab says, and most madhab say that um, the first one is permissible and the second two are not. So the first one, الذهب المموه, a non-golden item that is covered with gold. We say that this is permissible. The other two are impermissible. So if I have a golden item and it is covered with something that is non-golden, that is not permissible to use. And if I have an item that is cracked and the crack is filled with gold, that is also not permissible to use. And so the general rule to remember this is that al-hukmu hukmul batin. The ruling is the ruling of the batin, the inwards of it. Meaning, uh, whatever is on the inward, if it's permissible, then the whole thing is permissible. So we have a ceramic plate and it's covered in a thin layer of gold. It's plated in gold. Because the inward is permissible, the inward is ceramic, then the whole thing is permissible. The ruling of that plate is the ruling of what is inside it. And that's why if you have the opposite, if I have a golden plate and it's covered in something else, it is impermissible because the inwards of it is golden, and that is impermissible. And similarly, when we talk about al-dhahab al-mudabbab, a plate that is filled with the cracks are filled with gold, then the gold is part of the inside, and that is impermissible. Those are the three masail that are differentiated upon. So, uh, the practical application of this is that if you see a man, a Muslim man, wearing a golden watch or a golden ring, then do not rush to do inkar, do not rush to object, because it's possible. First, ask him, is this a pure golden watch or is it just plated? Because if it is just plated, if it's a silver watch, or sorry, if it's a steel watch or a leather watch, and it's just plated with gold, then it is permissible for him to wear it, according to most of the fuqaha. And so I've seen this many times where people, uh, ignorantly object. They say, brother, you can't be wearing this. They don't realize that it's not a pure golden watch. Or they do not realize that there is a difference between a pure golden watch and something that is just plated. So it is permissible to wear these things. And it is still better to avoid them for two reasons. The first reason is what we just mentioned, is that in the eyes of the public, of the Muslim public, it can be seen as disobeying Allah's command, regardless of whether they're right or wrong or just ignorant. It's better to avoid causing, confusion amongst certain people who do not understand things. And the second reason it's best to avoid it is, like I said, it is a matter of khilaf. And as we mentioned, uh, it is from the usul of the Malikiyya that leaving khilaf is mustahab. It is rewardable to leave masail which are differentiated upon. So you'll receive reward, inshallah, for leaving anything that is gold plated, even if it's permissible within the madhab. Now, there is something else for men, and I mentioned it in the hadith that I cited a few minutes ago. There's something else for men that is impermissible to wear. The Musannif, rahimahullah, he places it here after he talks about women. I'm gonna explain it before because seeing that all of the students in the class are men, whoever watches the recordings at a different time is something else. So it's more important to cover the second thing that is impermissible for men, which is silk. As I said, wearing silk is impermissible, not because it's imitating women, but rather because it is an item of extravagance. And as we just said in the hadith, it is for the kuffar in the dunya and it is for us in the akhirah. Now, what is silk? Silk is uh, it's an item that is secreted from um, a certain insect when it's making its cocoons, and that item is turned into long strings and it's spun together and made into a fabric. Is this the same thing as artificial silk? That's a mas'ala. That is, it's a new one. It's a new one that is differentiated upon because these artificial silks are basically just, mostly plastics. Uh, so does it have the same ruling as uh, real silk that is made from the traditional method? It's a matter to be discussed. But the matter that was already discussed by the fuqaha long ago, and is something that we also need to cover, is al-khaz. What is al-khaz? Khaz is a fabric that is a mix of silk and non-silk. So you have silk, you have real pure silk threads mixed with threads of cotton or linen or whatever it may be. And the result is a fabric that is very similar to velvet. It's very, again, extravagant. Even though it's not silk, it's mixed with, cheap, not necessarily cheap, but regular fabrics. And the mashhur of the madhab is that wearing khaz is makruh, but not haram. So similar to how the impermissibility of gold does not extend to gold-plated items, the impermissibility of silk does not extend to a piece of clothing that is made of mixed silk and other items, which is called al-khaz. When we say harir, that is pure silk. When we say khaz, it is a mix. And that mix does not necessarily have to be 50-50 or 30-70, or it doesn't matter what the percentage is um, uh, necessarily. As long as it is called khaz, then it is al-khaz. طيب, uh, we only have a few sentences left. We'll read these in the next class. We'll just take the first 5 minutes of the next class because the class is ending today. Is it better to avoid polyester? I don't think, I've never heard anyone say that there is a reason to avoid polyester. Polyester, of course, is entirely made of petrochemicals. It is not something that existed before the modern era. طيب, if anyone has any other questions, we have 2 minutes. Inshallah, we can get the recordings. Uh, just does take a bit of time going through the files. طيب, if no one has any other questions, like always, you can ask them. Uh, to me personally, I think I do have some questions that I didn't answer yet. I'll get to those immediately. If you have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you Saturday. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة